Hey folks, so think about the printing press, right? Printing press was actually invented in Korea, it was being used in Asia, but then we know that it ended up getting applied and widely used in Europe after Johannes Gutenberg started printing indulgences, started printing Bibles, and it was a means of communication that was revolutionary. At that point, you didn't have to have a scribe write everything out for you. All of a sudden, people could print. For a while, the Catholic Church had a monopoly on the printing press. You know, they could print their Bibles, they could print their indulgences, no one else could do it. But it was only a matter of time before they lost their monopoly. And you had the Protestant Reformation, and you had the revolutions that swept Europe because the means of communication and spreading information had advanced. And as a result, the monopoly on information and persuasion that was held by certain forces was eroded. Now, why is that relevant? I'm talking about things that happened a really long time ago. Well, it's relevant because I think it's only a matter of time before Silicon Valley falls, right? Let's go over the facts first of all. The computer revolution, right? People want to make it sound like that's because of capitalism, right? Capitalism made the computer revolution. Well, you can go down the line. A lot of achievements in terms of computers were carried out by the Soviet Union. And the Soviet Union, with a far lower level of development, did some amazing, amazing things. They had home computers, they had their operating systems, they did some amazing stuff. But overall, if you look at the computer revolution itself, it's something that wouldn't have come with capitalism operating completely on its own, right? That, you know, people largely attribute Alan Turing's decoding machine as being kind of laying the basis for modern computing. And if you look at that, that wasn't a free market situation. That was basically Britain during the Second World War, the military exercising huge control over industry, the military finding somebody and putting them to work. It wasn't a free market situation whatsoever. But regardless, we also know that the reason we have Apple, the reason we have IBM and all of that is that there was a strategic decision made by the intelligence agencies in the 70s and 80s. You know, the CIA, the NSA, they basically figured out that we in the USA had the resources to invest in the computer revolution and that it would be fruitful to be done. And it wasn't really a free market way of operating. It was a decision from the highest levels that the USA and the US government would loan money, and a huge amount of resources, government resources, was put into developing what is today Silicon Valley, the center of the computer, internet, social media universe. And right now we have the huge tech monopolies. We've got Google, we've got Facebook, we've got Twitter, we've got Apple, right? And at this point, you know, what was developed, you know, this tech monopoly has already gotten to the point that forces around the world are doing it as well. For example, right? I mean, when it comes to smartphones, the biggest telecommunications manufacturer in the world, Huawei Technologies, is in China, right? Russia's got Yandex, right? And it's expanding. Different forces are developing the ability to do things. And so, you know, we recently see, you know, for the last few years, there's been kind of this flagellation of Mark Zuckerberg. Mark Zuckerberg, the Facebook guy, right? And they're furious with him, and they blame the 2016 presidential election results on Mark Zuckerberg. And they say, look, essentially their argument is, look, Mark, you allowed messages that are contrary to the establishment to be spread through Facebook. You're supposed to be controlling the message, right? They're saying, oh my goodness, you allowed all these, you know, quote-unquote conspiracy theories to slip through. You didn't censor and control the means of information on behalf of the American establishment well enough. That's the argument, basically, right? And you've got George Soros funding protests against Mark Zuckerberg, and it's happening. So, Mark Zuckerberg, though, you got to think about how he sees things, right? He's allowing all kinds of different messages to go through. He's not censoring things vigorously. There has been some aggressive deplatforming and all of that, but it's kind of a strange situation because, you know, and it applies to Google, it applies to YouTube, you know, Twitter. If they start censoring people very, very vigorously, pretty soon they're going to lose their monopoly. right? That's just a reality. If you start censoring people, if you start silencing certain voices, they're going to go elsewhere, and they'll lose their monopoly. So they're trying to play this loose-handed game, where they'll allow certain views, but they'll suppress certain views. And you just read these articles, you know, there's always articles in the press, oh, look how many conspiracy theory videos there are on YouTube. Oh, look how many videos with wrong political ideas there are out there. They've singled out, in particular, you know, some folks that are really offensive, you know, the racist, Ku Klux Klan type people. And they, you know, that's most people can agree that that kind of speech, especially in the aftermath of Charlottesville, is atrocious. And so there's been, you know, there has been some deplatforming of those folks. But overall, you know, there is this situation where it's at the point where it's odd. They don't know what to do. But really, it's only a matter of time. It's only a matter of time before Silicon Valley falls. Pretty soon, the means of spreading information are not going to be monopolized anymore. Just like the Catholic Church pretty quickly lost control of the printing press, the means of information, the monopoly on social media and on spreading of information is not permanent. It's temporary. And pretty soon, Silicon Valley is going to fall. And that's going to be dramatic. And when that happens, the floodgates will have opened. And the level of freedom of information that exists will be far, far bigger than before. And they're calculating, and they're trying to keep a loose hand, not control things too much, not regulate, not over-regulate. Keep people on YouTube, don't keep people on Facebook, keep people on Twitter. They don't want to lose their monopoly. But it's really only a matter of time. Eventually, this is my prediction, Silicon Valley will fall, and freedom of information will slip right out of their fingers, and the world will dramatically change. That is my prediction. I don't claim to be a divinator. I don't claim to be somebody who can predict things. I don't have a crystal ball. I don't you know, practice astrology or anything to that effect. I obviously don't know how to immediately predict the future, but based on the way history works, I predict that some point pretty soon, could be a few years, could be longer than that, could be shorter than that, we're going to see the fall of Silicon Valley. The monopoly on the means of information and the fruits of the computer revolution is going to be eliminated, and there's going to be a widespread use of information. And that is what the global elite really, really fear, right? They've already seen what happened with WikiLeaks. They've already seen the spreading of information. But when Silicon Valley falls, the world will dramatically change.